I'm Haley B. Miller, and this is Ohio Politics Explained, a podcast where you give us 15 minutes and we give you all the news you need to sound smart and impress your friends. Welcome to another episode of Ohio Politics Explained. We're less than 4 weeks out from Election Day, so there are a few things going on right now. Today, we're going to discuss a key congressional race in Northwest Ohio, why voters may not see a Senate debate, the status of a law banning foreign campaign donations, and how Ohio is spending money on private schools. Joining me today is Erin Glenn.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get started, my semi-regular shameless plug. If you find OPE helpful or interesting, especially during this chaotic election season, you can leave us a review or rating on Apple Podcasts. Our first topic today is Ohio's 9th congressional district race. Democratic Representative Marcy Kaptur, the longest-serving woman in Congress, is running for a 22nd term against State Rep. Derek Merrin. Kaptur's district is more Republican than it used to be, but she hung on in 2022 thanks to a flawed opponent. This time could be different, though. Merrin has experience in office and support from national Republicans. What kind of messages are the candidates pushing in these last few weeks?
So Derek Merrin has more experience than Kaptur's last opponent. It was thought that he was going to be the new Speaker of the House before 22 Republicans split off to elect Jason Stephens. And Merrin has been hammering his record. He has co-sponsored bills in the Ohio State House to prohibit gender care for minors in Ohio. And he's co-sponsored a bill to require capitalism in the Ohio's financial literacy curriculum for high school students.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we've been hearing a lot from him, kind of similar to what we hear in the Senate race, honestly, is that, Kaptur is a so-called career politician. She's been in Congress way too long. The 9th district needs new blood, essentially. And I feel like that is going to be a theme that he kind of sticks with to Election Day.
For sure. Marcy Kaptur was first elected in 1982, so she definitely has a lot of experience.
What is she telling voters? I mean, what's her pitch for why she should continue to be in office?
She's talking a lot about jobs and the economy, trade agreements, immigration. She has sponsored bills about funding for Ukraine. So she's not on kind of the more left side of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I feel like she's very much a Sherrod Brown Democrat in that she is a big ally of unions. She talks a lot about kind of these economic populist issues. I remember she went to the picket line of the UAW strike last year and had a very awkward fist bump with Senator J.D. Vance. And, I think people know her up there. So we'll see if Merrin can break through and, to some extent, probably ride Trump's coattails as well.
Right.
Let's pivot to a debate in Ohio's U.S. Senate race, or the lack thereof. As you all know, Sherrod Brown and businessman Bernie Moreno are in a tight fight that could decide control of the Senate. You'd think that would make this race ripe for a debate, but the campaigns haven't agreed to one, and they probably won't, even though Brown and Moreno say they're both down. I mean, is it too late at this point? Early voting just started.
Yeah, it's interesting that they both said they're willing to do a debate, and yet no debate is materializing.
Right, and we're aware of at least one offer that was extended to them. The Ohio Debate Commission reached out to both campaigns, asking them if they wanted to participate. The campaigns acknowledged the request, but the commission has not received any confirmation or anything from them. I'm not sure what the nitty-gritty behind-the-scenes conversations have been, if there's a hang-up on rules or anything like that. But I think, as we've seen with the top of the ticket this year, there's like a whole other set of politics when it comes to debates.
Right. The fact-checking rules, the cutting off of mics. Maybe it's the news consumer bubble that we're in as reporters, but I can't imagine that there are that many undecided voters with the Ohio Senate race at this point.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know if people are undecided, but we are seeing in polls that it's going to be very, very close. This Washington Post poll that just came out showed, I think it was 48-47 Brown Moreno, and that was well within the margin of error. So it's essentially tied. I think whatever happens, Brown will probably do better in Ohio than Vice President Kamala Harris does. But it's going to be a matter of whether he can get some of these Trump voters to split their tickets and whether Moreno can make the case that he is the key to making sure that Republicans get control of the Senate.
Yeah, so I imagine candidates at this point are thinking that a debate could be riskier than it's worth.
Yeah, very true. Our next topic is a law that bans foreign campaign contributions. Specifically, it prevents foreign nationals and lawful permanent residents, aka green card holders, from donating to political campaigns. Lawmakers passed this as part of the Biden ballot fix, which feels like 100 years ago at this point, and critics sued pretty quickly over the law. A federal judge blocked it last month, but an appellate court ruled this week that it could take effect. What was the argument that they presented?
Yeah, well, it was put on hold because the U.S. District Court judge said that it violated the First Amendment rights of green card holders because they live in the United States indefinitely and they can serve in the military. But the appeals court, two of the judges disagreed with that. And then one judge dissented and was concerned about nonprofits and these organizations that work on citizen ballot initiatives. The concern was that, like, the onus is now on these nonprofit organizations to investigate the citizenship status of their donors, which could be difficult.
Yeah, especially because, as we know with dark money, it can be hard to track. And I think in some ways that's part of the argument that proponents of this were making. They pointed to groups affiliated with a Swiss billionaire that donated to the abortion rights amendment last year. But, you know, you had Democrats in the state legislature saying, well, if you're so concerned about dark money, why didn't we do anything about it when Larry Householder was bribing people? So it's a complicated topic for sure. And it sounds like at this point, the law is going to stay in effect unless they try to take it to the U.S. Supreme Court, I guess.
Right. And I think there's also a concern that this law doesn't do anything about foreign contributions from corporations.
Yeah. All right. Finally, let's turn to some controversy over how Ohio is spending money on private schools. A Washington-based nonprofit is investigating whether lawmakers violated the Constitution by awarding state funds to private school projects. They okayed at least $4.9 million for private school projects as part of this one-time funding known as the Super Duper Fund that they used for projects outside of the normal capital budget. Walk us through what this group is looking at, what allegations they're making.
Yes, so I went back through the Super Duper Fund, and by my count, there are 9 K through 12 private schools that received money, and this ranges from projects like $800,000 for an urban agriculture program at St. Edward's High School in Lakewood and $1.5 million for improvements to Mansfield Christian School in Richland County. So this group, Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, has a mission statement that's pretty clear by their name, is advocating for policies that separate church and state. So they think that this public money to private religious schools is a huge issue, and they want to either stop the money from being distributed to the schools or make sure the money is only going to improvements at facilities where religious practices do not take place. On the other hand, Senate Republicans say that the money was not like a grant for specific projects, but a fund that organizations could apply for, and it was meant for any projects that wouldn't be part of the normal capital budget process.
I find this investigation interesting because I think it's part of this overall debate as to whether lawmakers in Ohio are putting too many public resources toward charter schools. There's a lot of other public funding that goes to these schools. And, you know, there's a lawsuit now over whether the Columbus School District should be busing charter school students. So I think there's just a lot here, and this kind of adds another layer to it.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the same conversation about vouchers, the Ed Choice vouchers, and just generally whether public money should go to private religious schools, especially. And
now, I mean, more kids than ever before are eligible for these, right? Because of changes that were made to the program.
Right. It got rid of some of the income limits. So organizations like this group, Americans United, say that this kind of funding violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment by, which prohibits obviously an establishment of religion by giving money to explicitly Christian schools, although not every private school that received money was a Christian school.
And one more thing before you go. Early voting began Tuesday and will continue through Sunday, November 3rd. You can visit voteohio.gov to find your county's early voting location and the hours for each day. Ohio Politics Explained is brought to you by the USA Today Network Ohio Bureau. You can check us out on X, formerly known as Twitter, @Ohio Explained.